And here's what it says basically, that in the state of Montana, when, people go to court or any kind of a trial for anything, that state law and federal law and the Constitution that has to be the guiding principle in court decisions. And so if you happen to be a Muslim and you're living in the United States and you're a citizen or whatever, but you practice the Islamic faith, okay, well, when you go in the courts, these are American courts. The courts don't decide based on Sharia law. They decide based on the Constitution. Now, isn't there a certain measure of common sense to this, folks? Well, anyway, the bill passed in the legislature. Okay, that's good. But here's the remarkable thing about this. In the legislature, there's 56 Republicans and 44 Democrats. 56 Republicans and 44 Democrats. It passed. Guess what the vote was? 56 to 44. Every single Democrat voted no on this bill. Every single Democrat voted that Muslims in Montana ought to be able to be judged in court according to Sharia law and not according to the U.S. Constitution. And I just find this incredible. Now, what the Democrats are arguing, and the reason that they say they oppose this bill, is they say it's an anti-Muslim bill. It's offensive to Muslims. One of the Democratic representatives, Shane Morgo, said, quote, "This bill sends a dangerous message to minority groups living both here in our state and wanting to come to visit our state just merely on the fact that you may be different. This law is repugnant," end quote. So I get to thinking about this a little bit. The law is repugnant and, quote, dangerous? To say that if you're a Muslim living in the United States and you're in a court of law for committing a crime or charged with a crime or something like that, that you shouldn't be judged according to American law. You should be charged by Sharia law. If you oppose that and say, no, if you're an American, then you're under the Constitution, not Sharia law. Sharia law doesn't trump the Constitution. Holding that position is a dangerous position. It's repugnant. It's an insult to Muslims. I gotta tell you, folks, I do not get that. I don't get that at all. Well, if I'm a Christian, okay? I would never in a million years try to claim that we should, if we're accused of violating the law, or if there's any kind of court situation that we're in, then we should have the rulings in the courts happen according to Christian and biblical principles. And no, I'm not talking about the Old Testament being under Old Testament law. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about biblical principles in general. No, it's like we're Americans. We're under the U.S. Constitution. This isn't a theocracy. And Christians aren't trying to turn America into a theocracy. We're accused of that, but that's not what Christians try to do. But here's what else seems really strange about this desire of so many people in America that are sympathetic to the political correctness regarding Islam. We've got to be sensitive to Islam, and we can't be offensive to Muslims or Islam in any way. So yes, we should support Sharia law. Let's support Sharia law. Here's what I'm really curious. Of all the people out there that say that we should be sympathetic to Muslims in America that want to be under Sharia law, do you know what is part of Sharia law? I mean, do these 44 Democrats even know what is part of Sharia law? Go over into the Middle East. Go to Saudi Arabia. Go to Pakistan, okay? Go to Afghanistan. Go to some of these nations where Sharia law is the law of the land. And you know what you're going to see? Women are oppressed. You realize under Sharia law, women are oppressed. Women do not have equal rights as men. Legally, under the law, they don't have equal rights under Sharia law. You realize what Sharia law means? Sharia law means Islamic law. That's all that means, Islamic law. This is the law of Islam. So where do you look to see what the law of Islam is? The home of Islam, the Mecca of Islam. Saudi Arabia, which is where Mecca is. I don't think anybody out there can claim that Saudi Arabia is not pure Islam today, right? I mean, come on. Saudi Arabia is a home of Islam. That's where Muhammad's from. Mecca in Saudi Arabia is where Muslims worldwide have to face when they pray. You have to face Mecca, Saudi Arabia. That's how holy and revered Saudi Arabia is to Muslims worldwide, to the Islamic faith itself. Part of the 5 pillars of faith of Islam is that you have to get yourself to Mecca for pilgrimage at least once to participate in the Hajj. So if you really want to examine Sharia law does not grant equal protection to women. Women are not treated equally under the law. A woman's testimony does not carry the same weight as a man's testimony in a court of law, in Sharia law. And what I find really ironic about this, it's the liberals and the feminists and the Democrats and those on the political left that are saying, that are defending Sharia law. And it's like, are you kidding me? Look at how Sharia law treats women. Women in Saudi Arabia aren't even allowed to drive, folks. Women in Saudi Arabia aren't allowed to dress how they want to dress. They have to cover themselves with their burqa. They have to cover themselves head to toe in Saudi Arabia. They can't dress how they want to dress. They can't go into the marketplace by themselves. They can't go to the mall by themselves. A couple of Saudi Arabian women, a couple of housewives, they want to go to the mall together. They're not allowed to do it. They need a male escort. Did you know that? I mean, this is Sharia law, and this is what's being celebrated somehow as beautiful. Okay, under Sharia law, under Islamic law, husbands are legally allowed to beat their wives. Beat their wives. Why is this part of Sharia law? Because it comes out straight out of the Quran, Surah 434. Read it for yourself. That husbands can beat their disobedient wives. Now, there are restrictions in how the husband beats the wife, and this is part of Sharia law also. That here are the guidelines, here are the restrictions. You have to follow the motto in the Quran, okay? Because as Muhammad declared in the Quran, when beating your wife, you can't beat her as the first step. That's the third step. The first step is you have to try to persuade her with words. If she's disagreeing with you, you have to try to use words to get her to agree with you. If she doesn't agree with you, then you go to the second step, which is to withhold sex from her. As the Quran says, sleep beds apart. Okay, so in other words, you deny her sex. And then if that doesn't work and she still doesn't agree with you, then you may beat her. That's the third step. You beat her. But the Sharia law guidelines are you can't just beat her any way that you want to. You're not allowed to beat her in the face or in the breasts or in sensitive areas like that. Okay? So the places that you beat her need to be places that would be covered up so that people can't see the beatings, like so you can't beat her in the face. But also the rod that you use to whip her with, there are certain guidelines about how flexible versus stiff the rod can be and how large it can be, and so there's certain size measurements of the rod. Okay, that's part of Sharia law, folks. Part of Sharia law, if a woman is raped, the man, he gets in trouble, as he should get in trouble. But the woman also gets in trouble because now she's been defiled, and she very often gets whipped and lashes as well. Did you know that? You know what happens to homosexuals under Sharia law? Go ahead. Any of the lesbian and gay liberal champions in America that sing the praises of Islam, this beautiful, wonderful religion, here's my suggestion to you. Just go over and spend a day in Saudi Arabia. Let two men walking hand in hand wearing rainbow shirts just try to walk through Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or Iraq or Afghanistan or Iran or any other Muslim nation that operates under Sharia law. See what happens. Actually, can I say, I really wouldn't want gay people to do that. Sincerely, I would not. You want to know why? Because I don't want them to be hurt. You know what will happen to them? They will be beaten, they will be flogged, they will be imprisoned, and in some cases, executed. Executed for being homosexual, gay or lesbian, or transgender. by the way. Okay, that's Sharia law. Now, that doesn't mean, look, don't get me wrong, folks. I understand here in America and in Montana, that doesn't mean that some homosexual person is going to be executed because it's a Sharia law court. No, I mean, there are limits to what they would be able to do in Sharia law. They wouldn't be able to practice pure Sharia law. But what they're talking about is the areas that we can get away with ruling according to Sharia law instead of American courts and American precedent. Let us rule in areas of Sharia law. And then in areas where it absolutely would be illegal for us to do that, well, in that case, well, I guess we'll have to obey the Constitution and the laws of the land. But other than that, if we can get around it, let's rule according to Sharia law. Why isn't Sharia law considered extremely politically incorrect in America? Stop and think about that a moment, folks. Under Sharia law, if you blaspheme Muhammad, blaspheme Islam, speak a negative word about Muhammad or Islam, then that is punishable by death. Did you know that? By death. Under Sharia law, if you convert from Islam to any other religion, if you leave the faith, you convert from a Muslim to a Christian, you're considered an apostate, and under the hadiths, you are to be executed. A fatwa is placed on you and you're to be executed. Now, not all apostates are executed. Some are just imprisoned. Some are just beaten. Some are beaten. Some are just deported. Some are executed. So I just, for the life of me, folks, I do not understand how it is that Sharia law is not perceived as an extremely, extremely ugly legal system.